DLCs are normally a nice little bonus. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but not normally so much harder than the main game that you want to curl up in a little ball and hope someone fires you out of a cannon, cause that seems easier than continuing on. Dark Souls 2, for me, has that DLC. In my last video, I showed you how I fared doing the main game without healing. Now you get to watch a grown rat cry when pit against its DLC. 3 separate adventures awaited me, each providing a new, yet familiar variety of pain. Let's go see all the trials and tribulations I had to deal with when I sought to beat all of Dark Souls 2's DLCs without healing. Before we can explore the depths of suffering, first I must unlock the key to hell. This involves a couple giants bashing my brains out. That is, if I don't do them the service of walking into the abyss as I habitually love to do. An ill omen that it takes the use of a crossbow to even the odds before I can fail the rare creatures and collect the key, well, to the key, that unlocks the first DLC, Crown of the Sunken King. Checking my death count to find it at 597, I hope, naively, that mayhaps this trip won't cost me another 100, and I'll be able to finish this challenge without reaching 700. If only. Perhaps someday, when I come across ominous doors that I struggle to open, I'll leave them be, instead of shoving onwards towards whatever danger they hold within. Probably not, though. It doesn't take me too long to make the acquaintance of this underground kingdom's knights. If I thought I was outnumbered at points in the main game, I'm learning quickly it doesn't compare to here. Archers pelt me while the melee fighters distract me. Only by dragging my enemies away, vanquishing them, then moving in, do I sweep clean the area. But the cost to my health is often too great, and since I can't spare any of my lifeblood, I instead discover the wonder of elevators. Activating elevators in the area, I can block the sight of half the knights, making it far easier to clear them out bit by bit. Enemies may be ended, but my unstoppable march towards the abyss never seems to. No. Yeah, that about figures. Alright, time to be skilled and acrobatic. Or just dead. While the knights provide some challenge, it's only due to their numbers, and when I split them up or eliminate them before they can take advantage of that trouble evaporates. Mostly anyway. Nothing like throwing poison into the mix to ensure I don't get too confident. I surprise myself by surviving enemy after enemy. That is, until I meet the ghost of Christmas violence, who ends my short-lived streak. Returning, I seek to do what Scrooge could not and successfully avoid entangling myself with the apparitions. You may be invulnerable, but you never learned how to climb. How's this feel? Oh. You know what, just forget you saw that and we'll call it even. Any chance you want to fall off the edge, pal? Yay! Oh wait, I'm also stuck down here. It brings me immense joy to find that while these ghosts may possess powers beyond me, they suffer from the same affliction as I. Namely, a magnetic pull to death by gravity. Destroying their ghastly, gassy statues, I'm confident I've destroyed their spirit protection, though mayhaps too confident. You're not a ghost in— uh-oh. That doesn't mean you guys can climb still, right? Oh, he's got crossbows too! While I'm capable of avoiding the majority of the knights, the same cannot be said for these big, angry murder doggos, who devour me instantly. Still sad to see they kill me less than this easily avoided fall next to where I come back to life. I not only die here multiple times, but even multiple times in a row. I'm convinced at this point there's a giant magnet in the abyss, and I have the opposite magnet buried deep within myself. Steering clear of the murder puppies in the void, I instead follow a different route, one that's packed full of menacing undead and obnoxious spitting statues. While I normally love all tortoises, or turtles, these tunnels have a statue-loving variety that can only be dealt with by ranged attacks, and there is zero love in my heart for them. Well, maybe a little love, but that love is dwarfed by rage born of impatience. At the end of this long tunnel of irritations, there lies perfection. By perfection, I of course mean a perfectly annoying end to such an annoying tunnel. A trio of grave robbers who serve as the first bosses of the DLC. One built for defense, another built for speed, and a third built for range, all come together to be the Voltron of ruining my day. The idea here, as far as I can tell, is either A, bring phantom friends, something that I attempt to do, but find the increased health that every enemy gains is too much for me to handle. So I go with B, running in circles to draw the two melee fighters away so I can single out the bow user so it can be a 2v1 instead of the unwinnable 3v1. This fails spectacularly, as the bowman is more agile and capable in close range than I expected at first, which means either he needs no help slaying me, or he needs no help holding me off long enough for his friends to slay me. I'm not one to be quick to anger, but Wrath doesn't have to worry about that, as spending over 4.5 hours in this purgatory ensures I make my way steadily to him, slowly or not. Making use of a shield and extremely cautious hits, I can consistently kill the bowman, but I never last against the duel as I prove repeatedly to not have the brain power necessary to outplay the power of friendship. Power that doesn't work in my grasp, even if I clear the tunnel and bring every upgrade I can think of. Either my allies take too much aggro and fall before being of use, or I take too much aggro and fall. Neither path brings me a smidge closer to victory. So I decide if these grave robbers are going to endlessly dig my grave without any sense of fairness, then I will dispense with the pleasantries and play dirty right back. This time, when I put the bowman down with my hit and runs, I attempt only once more to fight fairly. After another blow puts me on the verge of dying, I finally accept I won't be winning this fight skillfully, but I will be winning it nonetheless. Whipping out my crossbow, I circle back and forth, dropping in and out of the water, firing every chance I get, all the while ensuring the two thieves never reach me. If they had any sense at all, they could easily outflank me, but there's no thinking here, only bloodlust and narrow-minded focus. I may miss, or be blocked quite a bit, but it doesn't matter. They can't touch me, and I brought more than enough bolts to put down these two dolts. It takes me 13 minutes of sluggish fighting before victory achieved graces my screen, but at long last I'm free of the very first boss out of 9. Now more inclined to be patient in order to avoid greater loss of time, I make my way to the next boss lurking in this long forgotten kingdom. I admit, not my wisest move attacking her while so close to death, but my newly acquired patience was quick to fade, as is my body the moment she counterattacks. Alana is a terrible hostess, as she keeps inviting company without warning me, and all my fellow introverts out there know how terrible it is to go somewhere and get skewered by unexpected guests. It's no surprise by now to find that I'm abysmal when it comes to fighting more than one enemy at a time, which is basically the motto of Dark Souls 2. Alana herself isn't much trouble, but I rarely can endure the onslaught from both her and her bones. Still, I find better the weak triplets than to be faced with her other possible summon, the hulking King's Guardian from the main game. If he spawns into existence, then I'm promptly despawning at the behest of his massive hammer. My only chance at victory is if luck favors me and she brings in her skeletons to battle me, at which point I must immediately disengage from her, create distance, and slay them all while keeping an eye on her incoming attacks. When it's just her and I left, then we could awkwardly dance together as we wait for the other to make the first strike. When she seeks to summon aid for the second time, I refuse to risk another lengthy encounter. Instead, I roll the dice of chance by attacking with all I have to bring her down a heartbeat before I'd be slain myself. Only costing me an hour is a small price compared to the trio fight earlier. With her vanquished, the wall slides open, beckoning me forth to another contest. This time against a poisoned dragon who has long slumbered here, and now understandably is enraged that I interrupt his nap. Groggy or not, Sleepy is more than capable of taking to the air, and in fact it's one of his favorite hobbies. Right behind crushing me underneath his enormous frame, that is. An ember of hope that I might win this fight quickly lights up when I got Sin halfway through on my first attempt, and is immediately snuffed out when Claw meets face at the start of my second try. Each engagement either ends quickly at Sin's discretion, or continues for a while, but not with any progress made, simply because Sin enjoys the perks of being a dragon. I'm a rotting corpse! I shouldn't be forced to do this much cardio! This battle probably wouldn't have ticked away another hour before victory, if I hadn't been forced to spend so much of that time sprinting back and forth, trying to get in stab range of my flighty foe while avoiding his tackles. The poison he spews is of little concern, and while it does take a while to reach fruition, I find hugging Sin's back left leg makes most of his attacks trivial. Do that tactic long enough though, and he adapts, turning me into a roasted corpse of a corpse, if I don't keep an eye out. Another problem appears when my blade begins to shatter against the numerous hits on the nigh impenetrable hide. This unforeseen obstacle cost me an almost victory, followed closely by a second almost win when Sin attacks upon landing, something he rarely does. Thankfully, the follow-up attempt is successful when my blade luckily only begins to crumble a swing from victory, and Sin, the slumbering serpent, sleeps forevermore. The fall of the Drake marks the end of the sunken city, and I embark for the crown of the old Iron King. At first, the warriors that rose up to block my path felt like minor trouble, but how quick that thought reversed as I found their sheer numbers often to be too much for me. Of all the DLCs, this second one would prove to use my greatest weakness, an inability to outfight multiple enemies at once, to great effect most often. I continue like this until I find myself deep within the depths of the earth. Here is where hell unleashes itself in full, the combination of melee and magic proving far too much for me. If I didn't have my crossbow to whittle down the magic users, I'd probably still be languishing in those crushing depths even now. Bit by bit, I clear the way, or at the least, sprint past the threats until I find myself before an old enemy. The Smelter Demon from the main game, a massive malevolent being of metal and fire, had been slain. But here stands its menacing twin. Where the first burnt my flesh with flames, this one melts me with magic. Its attacks are the same, but the rhythm of them is now more unpredictable, faster or slower in unexpected ways. Even worse, I realize, is the aura of magic damage engulfing the devilish machine is too much for me to bear. A cookie of fire resistance allowed me to survive its counterpart, but I know of no such thing for magic. At first, I attempt to simply keep the distance, making use of the crossbow, but I lack the necessary skill to remain undamaged before my puny bolts can do anything of worth. Any joy I could gain from this fight is consistently undermined by the run back to partake in it. If the tunnels to the grave robbers was obnoxious, these tunnels prove to be far more akin to the roads of Tartarus. Only when the majority of the foes blocking the way are slain can I finally make proper progress with the demon, but that is a tedious, brutal experience. For 3 hours I wandered this hell, and less than an hour of that is spent actually fighting the boss. It's here I'm forced to do the unthinkable, something I've avoided every second up to this moment. Yeah, that's right, I'm sorry to say. I have to change my clothes. My slaying is ruined as I change into the best magic resistance gear I have. Also, I can survive the aura of magic. Now with the proper resistance, however horrid I may look, I can avoid death by proximity, and instead, save it for death by blade. Well, probably still proximity, cause if I do take a single hit, my odds of success plummet with my health as the magic flames end me. Thankfully, while I'm normally stuck whacking him a single time, he provides a generous 3-hit opening every single time he lets loose a magic burst. If the demon didn't prove so partial to this attack, constantly using it and leaving himself open, I surely would have fallen yet again. But thankfully, he is, and I don't, though I surely cut it close. With him deactivated, I bow in relief and immediately change back to my proper attire. Let's pretend we never saw otherwise. Taking the time to clear out some clone invaders and finding the cutest and happiest Minotaur statue I've ever seen, I make my way to the next boss. The path to him is far kinder and easier to handle, especially when I discover a bonfire right next to his lair. Before I encroach on his lair, I head back to find my death count, now at 826, and then return and destroy these glowing statues found around the area. I've already seen them heal an invader earlier, and I wasn't gonna risk their use here. With them shattered, I enter and face off with the formidable Fume Knight. Fumes is fast, hard-hitting, and a dual wielder. That makes him both quite the situation, but also quite enjoyable. However often I hit the ground, which I promise is quite often, I was never fuming. When Fume reaches about half health, his two swords turn to one large flaming sword. And that's usually the same time I become a snow angel. His first half is usually no trouble. His second half, it's all trouble. For 2 hours, we battle, and rarely do I make headway into his second phase. Staying close to him in the second phase ends with me 6 feet under, as I lack the speed of mind and body to react to his sudden moves. But if I maintain my distance, I can bait out most of his moves, only attacking once I'm certain I won't be hit back. This may slow down the fight, but it does allow me first a near victory, ruined by my eagerness to end the fight, followed by a real victory. Though I truly did not think that last fight would be just that, as I incurred so much damage immediately. And frankly, I made the exact same mistake I made in my last defeat, only surviving by the thinnest margin. Being that close to death is perhaps a gift, as it forces me to treat this as a no damage fight. And that mindset encourages only the most cautious of choices. Caution leads to victory. Unfortunately, the next boss does not take after the Fume Knight, and instead copies the Smelter Demon's approach, in which I have to clear out minion after minion just to reach him. My inability to heal is a poor companion to my subpar skill level, so once again, this area has to be cleared out entirely with no resurrections left for my enemies before I can take on this speedy Slayer of Men. All my practice on Fumi apparently does not pay off with this Samurai Knight, as while I do nearly win an hour in, it would take me 2. Between his speed, range, the poor damage I do to him, and the great damage he does to me, there's little wonder as to why this takes so long. A shield may keep the majority of his hits from ending me, though certainly not all of them, but the bleed buildup from blocking and the stamina lost makes mixing dodges in quite vital. If only I was good at them. At the slow rate I deal out damage, this gives plenty of opportunities for me to slip up. Time and time again, I bring him low only to screw up in a mistimed dodge and cost myself everything. Doesn't help how much he loves to spam his jump attack, one of the few attacks I can't block, and he knows it. In the end though, all these moments of becoming Ash lead to enough practice that I simply learn to quell my urge to panic dodge, and work at it long enough that nothing he can do surprises me anymore, until the lone knight drops to the ground, vanquished at last. With 6 of the 9 bosses now dead, I can whoop with joy, and march onwards to the last of the lands, now with 926 deaths to my name.
Approaching the land noise. Turn back. The old chaos hungers still.
I really should have listened to the mysterious voice of doom, but I've never been too good about hearing out omens of death. They're always so pessimistic. Always right though. The Frozen Knights chill my heart, once again, not with their individual strength, but with their numbers. But this time, the numbers can't compare to what I waded through in the last area, and other than the spear units with shielded backs, most enemies don't really worry me. It doesn't change that once again, I fail to make headway for a while, but this time, at least it doesn't take the whole area wiped out permanently to make it past. Once I do, I'm confronted by a great big kitty. A very murderous kitty at that. Our little snow cat only takes a few hits to turn me into Cat Chow, and while she doesn't have a huge variety of moves, they're delayed enough that I struggle to get the hang of them. The majority of her moves don't cause me much trouble, but for some reason, her claw swipe perplexes me to no end with its delay and surprisingly long reach. This refusal to learn, plus the fact that my weapons will begin to break when she's low on health, are why it once again takes a little over 2 hours to win. Her leap attacks are usually simple to avoid, which is why it really stings when I fall to one so close to victory. But her magic blasts are my favorite move, as it often leaves her open for longer than the single strike I can normally perform. Taking advantage of those moves, bringing an electrified sword, finally getting the hang of that delayed strike, and coming prepared with multiple weapons, I say a sorrowful goodbye to the kitty, having incurred only minimal damage from blocking her. With heaven gaining another angel, I step through the next mist door I see and dive into hell. So this is that Helldivers game everyone's been talking about. Lives up to its name. Recognizing I'm here too early, I take off and instead fight some super deadly porcupines. They're surprisingly ornery and vicious foes, but when I make it past them, I not only manage to free some knights to dive into hell with me, but also get to make a snowball. Sure, it kills some people, but what snowball fight hasn't? After tons more fighting with every minion I bump into, I stumble upon a coffin, and as we all naturally do, I of course climb right in for a good nap. Who could have foreseen that I'd suddenly be swept right off the side and into a blizzard where reindeer possessing the power of Thor ambushed me? This is not how impromptu coffin naps are supposed to go. My eyes crusted shut with snow, my bones badly broken by reindeer, and my spirit crushed by having spent hours wandering these DLCs with all roads leading to another shade of death, I turn away from my coffin nap and head back to hell diving. Now with the power of 4 knights aiding me, I'm placed into the largest combat yet, as we battle back waves of corrupted soldiers pouring in from fiery portals. Where cold once stung my body, now heat does the same, though none of it compares to the endless march of Chaos's forces. Again and again, I try to hold back the Horde of Darkness, waiting for my allies to give their lives to seal the portals and stop the infinite suffering. Again and again, I taste ash, overwhelmed by sheer numbers and my own inescapable recklessness. For 2 hours, I'd slain and be slain, sometimes with the help of phantoms, most times without. But only twice in those 2 hours do I even succeed in beating back the defense of the Chaos Knights, only for the gates of hell to spring open and outstep the corrupted Ivory King, who without fail burns away what hope I have. Usually by the 2-hour mark, I'll be on the heels of victory, but here, in this burning maelstrom of fire, even when backed by hard-fighting allies, all I could do was rarely reach the boss. The corrupted knights were endless. There'd be no stopping their return every dive, and that meant there'd be no stopping my inevitable demise. Sometimes, I'd throw myself into the searing flames and save them the trouble. My old companion, the Emerald Guardian's endless warnings about my frail hopes shattering was starting to prove true. I could feel myself hollowing every dive into chaos, into hell, into hopelessness. So I stopped. The more strategy one uses, the less skill they need, so that's what I set out to do. For 2.5 hours, using the advice of a much more skilled friend in Darva's no-hit run, I worked to make myself unstoppable. I found an old enemy in the Pursuer, putting him down quickly and taking his ring for better damage, equipped other rings that would do even more damage, gathered up 2 rapiers for extremely quick, brutal damage, and kept resurrecting another old enemy, the Rotten, in order to farm souls. These souls I used to level some more, improve my new blades, and gain some bright bugs, rare items that would tremendously increase my damage. Vitally, I also revisited the Seers from the beginning of the game to change my stats, this time putting nearly everything into having better stamina and hitting as hard as I can at the cost of minimal health. Now at 1,097 deaths, I dove back into hell and went to work. And of course, died horribly for 2 more hours. All the stats and improvements one can make doesn't alter the fact that I rather suck. That inescapable recklessness of mine is truly inescapable, and when there's zero room for error, that can only end one way. Out of the 4 hours I spend in total in this chaotic frenzy, I only met the Ivory King 7 times, and all but 2 of those encounters ended before they could properly begin. Dozens and dozens of painful endings came at the hands of his small army. While I often try to pull them from each other in order to get in a safe hit, these guys are really tight-knit knights, so hitting one usually leads to his friend backing him up. In the end, it's a combination of luck as to when the knights won't have punishing allies, and patience as I suppress my instinct to attack until I'm absolutely certain there's zero chance I'll take a hit. The moment the last Dark Agent of Chaos falls, I switch to my dual blades, electrify my weapon, and ingest a bright bug for maximum damage. The king gets an early hit with his whirlwind speed, but it's not enough to kill me. Backed by one final heroic knight, I lay into the king every chance I get, with the majority of his moves highly telegraphed charges. I'm pretty sure the Dark Royal has a phase 2, but I never even see it, putting him down before he can ever put it into effect. My loyal knight and I say our goodbyes, and I can finally find freedom from this nightmare. We're not done yet. That blizzard I ran from still awaits, so back into the cold I charge. The reindeer come, I crush them, but they bury me almost as much as I do them. For almost an hour, I ran blindly through that harsh frozen land, battling off Santa's evil minions, yet never reaching the boss. And then suddenly, after one last head trauma by reindeer, I spawned back in, yet I never ran into another. Being I lost my last fight with those Christmas demons, I had expected more, but I guess they got tired of beating my face in. I'll take it. Won't stop me from walking right off a ledge, but that's nothing new. When I do make it through the blizzard, I keep an eye out for any flying pigs, but I don't see any. Strange, since clearly this is hell frozen over. But regardless, I'm at last at the final boss. 2 kitties, lounging about and just enjoying life, but sadly, my last test. The second tiger will only come in when the first is nearly beaten. Given my damage output and the fact that they have the exact same movesets as the king's pet from before, it doesn't take long to do just that. Well, by the third try anyway, though that too ends in failure when the second tiger lands an unexpected hit. Nothing like getting hypothermia, losing a few toes in the snow, only to get one shot by a hungry tiger the moment you reach your destination. But by the 5th try, the twin beasts were zero problem. They never fight together, cause I never risked letting them both live that long. And since they operate just the same as a boss I had already mastered, while way weaker, it only took a moment to bring down the second predator. A tad bit anticlimactic in comparison to the mess that was the Ivory King, I admit, but I certainly needed this. Huzzah! After 43 hours, 32 minutes, with 570 visits to the grave, I've beaten all of Dark Souls 2's DLC without healing. That was painful. And yet, I strangely feel an urge to venture back in. Perhaps it's Dark Souls 3's turn instead. Thank you all for watching and for all your support. I hope it was as enjoyable for you as painful as it was for me. A special thank you to all my patrons whose support makes a world of difference. Gives me that extra strength to not go hollow. Now I'm off to find some seers to change my stats in real life. I seem to be stuck at level 1 and they might be able to help. Good luck and have a great day, friends. You got this.